Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Education regular meeting. It is December 13th. Are we in compliance with the open meeting law?
Yes, we are.
Call the roll, please.
Carnes.
Here.
Salaji.
Here.
Wright.
Here.
Wyman.
Here?
Carlin. Here. DeWitt. Here. Herzog.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, and we'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. We have two guests this evening. We have Lanaya Norman and Hiba Malik. If you'd like to come up here and lead us, that would be great. They're from Carl Traeger.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And our guest principal this evening is Jill Pascarella from Carl Traeger. And I saw Jill. Jill left.
I think she's saying goodbye to the...
Oh. Mrs. Pascarella.
You want Jill?
Yeah.
If possible.
Hi, have a seat. Yes. We'd like to hear some principal highlights from Carl Traeger.
Kidding me?
No.
Well, ask me some questions.
So Jill, how has your strategies been around literacy and math this year as you guys are moving forward? So another stellar job on the report card.
Thank
so
you.
Congratulations to you and your staff for that. But can you just give some highlights just relative to things that you guys have been working on at Traeger?
And thanks for putting me on the spot like this. I really appreciate it. It's how I roll best. Well, what I would tell you is, I'm sure you all know that we have adopted a new literacy program, Study Sync, and my teachers piloted it last year for, I think it was 30 days. So, as with any rollout, you know, there's bumps in the road. But what I would tell you that my teachers would say is that the rigor is there. It's up to them to make sure it's engaging for kids. And I think they're just doing fantastic at that. And I've tried to give them some sub-time to plan, because we all know that's what really kills you when you're trying to roll out a new curriculum, and it's just, there's so much and you want to do the best job you can. So I worked really hard to get them some days here and there to spend planning, but I'm going to tell you that my teachers are very, very positive about it, and I think that kids have also been very positive about it. Sam has been over, and I love it. He goes around and talks to the kids and asks them, and they will tell him they're on Study Sync and this is what they're doing, and so I think it's been super positive. Math, same thing. I have some really amazing teachers, especially 6th grade. I have Chris Chewinski, who we call the Magic Man, because when you shut that door, magic happens. And he is so amazing with those 6th graders. And he operates CPM just really well when I go in there and I hear the vocabulary and some of the strategies like the huddle and different things, and kids know what's happening. It's just amazing when they know the terminology and they know exactly what's expected. So I'm going to tell you that it's going extraordinarily well at Traeger Middle School. So
That's marvelous. And
wonderful.
Questions?
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good work.
Bye-bye. Dr. Davis, the land acknowledgement. That's
We'll
okay.
do I have the land acknowledgement, so we can do that. As we gather today, we would like to acknowledge that in Oshkosh, we are on the ancestral homelands of the Ho-Chunk Nation and the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, who lived along the western shores of Lake Winnebago, Wisconsin's largest freshwater lake entirely within its borders. We acknowledge these indigenous sovereign communities who have stewarded this land throughout the generations and pay respect to their elders, past and present. We welcome the duty and opportunity to share stewardship of these lands.
Thank you very much. Next, we have approval of the agenda. Dr. Herzog, you wanted to move an item?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Wyman. I was wondering if we might move under individually considered resolutions, number 7, waiver of policy 7250.01, and number 8, naming of Oshkosh West High School Little Theater, to perhaps right under the 2 public forums, so right before the workshop, in order to accommodate the family who may have driven up here for this particular item.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Can you call the roll, please?
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
DeWitt. Aye. Herzog.
Aye,
Carnes.
Aye.
Motion carries.
thank you.
Okay. Board President report. Obviously, there are a lot of holiday activities happening in the community. Last Saturday, there was a most marvelous art show that was held at the Masonic Temple, and I don't think I'm exaggerating when I'm saying hundreds of people were there, families were there. It was very exciting, and the artwork was fantastic, and it's just so wonderful when you see the art show going on and people walking to Main Street to see the reindeer and Santa and a musician. It truly was a community event, and thank you to the Masonic Temple for opening their doors to allow so many families in. Another event that happened this weekend was at the Grand Opera House, and it was the community band, another partnership with the Northwest and Lourdes Madrigals. Just a wonderful evening of music, and the place was packed. It's really nice to see the community partnerships, and I hope we continue with community partnerships outside and inside the schools. And that is my president's report. We also have some retirements that I would like to acknowledge. And the first one is John Duffy, an EBD teacher, and he's been with the district since 2016. And Jeffrey Isham, a building custodian at Merrill Elementary School, and he's been with the district since 1993. Does anyone have anything to say about either of these individuals? Dr. Herzog?
We always want to acknowledge our retirees who have devoted so many years to the success of our students and support of our staff and other staff members. And so I always like to wish them a long, healthy, and happy retirement.
Same goes from the board. Thank you very much. Superintendent's report.
All right, well, we're working through the technology, so it looks like maybe we're there. So we can. So why don't we go with we'll go with Sparty first. So Eva is here from Oshkosh North to be able to work through. Can we do that?
Okay.
All right, Eva, it's all you.
Okay. Thank you. So on November the 28th, Oshkosh North Music Department held their first ever musical fundraiser. We raised over $1,650 to help fund this year's musical Matilda. We are very thankful for our donors and our student volunteers. This event was made possible by our Choir Council Treasurer, Jared Jennings, as well as music department teachers, Ms. Duffy, Ms. Dorsher-Mackey, and Ms. Grine. Thank you all who showed up and to help support the music department. On November 28th, as well as student council exec board members connected with the student parliament in Lafayette. North Student Council was approached with this idea from past exchange student Tina Donsom. The students talked about the differences in planning elections and how membership works. A big congratulations goes to Colton Angel. On Friday, December 1st, he signed his letter of intent to play at Southeastern Community College in Iowa. We wish him luck on his next adventure. ONHS girls basketball has had an amazing season so far under the coaching of Mr. Rick Lieb, with 4 wins and only 2 losses. We are very proud and can't wait how the season goes. On November 30th, Oshkosh North Band performed at the annual parade. They performed Christmas carols and had a blast. They also had their annual holiday concert yesterday on the 12th at 6 p.m. in the auditorium, and they worked really hard to make it spectacular. On November the 19th, join OHS Choir in celebrating the holidays with a performance from the Madrigals and each choir at North. The songs range from classic music Christmas carols to songs in Hebrew and Catalan. The Madrigals are going to be performing at the Masonic Temple on December 17th with other Masonic Madrigal singers from around the city. This event is an annual event, and Madrigals always look forward to it. The Bandorama annual concert will be at Oshkosh North Fieldhouse December 16th at 6 p.m. The performances will feature all public middle and high schools. We're excited to hear everyone perform. Thank you for checking this party.
Thank you very much.
All right, and on for the superintendent good news report for tonight. We'll start at Carl Traeger Middle School. So who doesn't like a good old-fashioned polka? Members of the Carl Traeger Middle School Polka Dot, a polka group of dedicated 7th and 8th grade band students, kicked off December with their annual performance at the Christmas in the Air event held at the EAA Air Venture Museum. Students performed seasonal songs for families and community members of all ages at this free public event. So great to see the students exploring and sharing their talents. So congratulations to everybody involved there. Some Oshkosh West athletic success. We had Oshkosh West girls swimmers qualified for state, so congratulations to Carly and Tamara on that accomplishment. And congratulations to Wildcat Braylee Jadarski, who recently signed her letter of intent to play softball at Winona State next year, so good luck to her. We had, last week, I had the opportunity to participate in the Gallup Strength Finder Coaches course along with our Executive Director of Human Resources, Sabrina Johnson, to be able to join some local professionals from both public schools, private schools, along with some private businesses. A great chance to just learn some techniques for coaching people, use their talents to increase their engagement in their professional and personal lives. So that was a nice opportunity for us that we'll pay forward back into the system. Just remember, everybody, for tomorrow, from lunch, dinner, or even snack plans, if you have that tomorrow, we've got you covered. The Oshkosh community is invited to support the Oshkosh Public Schools simply by enjoying a Jimmy John's sandwich. Thanks to the generosity of Jimmy John's in Oshkosh, 10% of the net sales on Thursday, December 14th, will be donated to our very own Education Foundation. Funds raised will support innovative programs and provide resources to elevate our public school students' educational experiences. So remember Jimmy John's tomorrow. Thanks to the generous support of our community donors and volunteers, Reed Elementary has begun its transformation into a thriving space. With more to come this spring, we wanted to take the opportunity to share the school's progress. This community-led playground fundraising campaign has resulted in an addition of an incredible equipment in a few spaces at Reed. A few of the new changes include a fire truck playground, swings, musical instruments, stage, outdoor classroom, community garden beds, free library, tree-to-tree walk, a transformer wrap, ninja playground, Reed Rockets banner, and Candyland, and some parking lot games. So it's truly a remarkable community endeavor come together to support our students. So thank you for everybody that's been involved in that process. Second graders at Franklin have been focused on engaging with our community. They first wrote to veterans, then they organized a candy drive to send sweets to our troops. They participated in a reading contest where every minute of reading resulted in a penny donation. Students were able to raise $20, which matched a generous community member donation, and they donated those funds to the local nonprofits. So great job, Franklin. Keep up the good work. Oshkosh North students in our FVTC entrepreneurial class are embracing lessons that have them out in the community. Two of our students went to 01 Vintage, a vintage and recycled clothing store on Main Street. They interviewed the owner of the business about their target customers, and they also had fun trying on some vintage clothes, which you can see there in the pictures. Looks like a fun event. Our district recently received the inaugural Risk Management Award from the Wisconsin Educators Risk Management Cooperative. This award was created to recognize the advancement and innovation in the practice of risk management. Specifically, we were lifted up for our actively participating and contributing in professional organizations, actively in continuous training, developing and educating staff, community, first responders, and our local partners, as well as training staff in restorative practices and our ALICE training. Special shout out to all of our employees and leaders who are committed to keeping our schools and districts safe every day. So congratulations to everyone involved in that. Our second graders from Shapiro recently experienced the joy of swimming. They partnered with the YMCA to learn about water safety and to try out those new skills. South Park 7th grade science students recently constructed DNA models made of unique ingredients, including lots of candy. So again, some great creative learning there for those DNA models. Hopefully they made them home. Also want to announce the launch of the first ever district podcast, Mission Keepers, a podcast focused on how the Oshkosh Area School District employees are finding joy and empowering lives during the day. Episode 1 just released today with Dr. Fong Nguyen, an incredible mission keeper serving as a choir director at Val Phillips Middle School. New episodes will be released each month. You can learn more on the website and subscribe to Mission Keepers wherever you get your podcasts. We also welcome guest suggestions. So if you know of anyone that's a current employee that we should lift up in the spotlight, please let us know. There's a guest nomination form on the website on our communication page. And thanks for listening. We're looking forward to continuing to develop that. And finally, just some places that I've been around to. Again, thank you for everybody being welcoming and being in and around the community throughout the last couple of weeks. And that concludes the superintendent's good news report for tonight.
Thank you very much. Next, we go to District Administrator supplemental reports. Mr. Fox, Mr. Considine.
Yes. So Mr. Considine will be joining us today along with Mrs. Conrad.
They'll be giving us an update on Menominee Elementary School construction and the Menominee Elementary School mascot and logo.
Good evening. Thanks for having us tonight. Unfortunately, Jim Fox was unable to be here, but we're happy to give the report. At Menominee Elementary School, work completed in the last 30 days. Exterior block walls in Unit A, or Area A, which is the two-story portion of the building, are largely complete. Interior masonry walls within that same section are largely complete. Structural steel and precast plank has been set in the Unit Area A, so that allows for the second floor activities to occur in that area. MEP rough-ins, which is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing rough-ins, are ongoing inside of Unit A. And then stair A1 in that area has been set as well. So that is a pathway that contractors can then use safely to navigate up to that second floor to continue with construction. Concrete slab on grade on the south side of Area B, which is our transition into the cafeteria area, has also been set. So a few pictures for you here. Upper left is the servery area, so you can see no slab in there yet, but lots of rough-ins dealing with all the plumbing and things like that below grade and setting up the servery and kitchen space properly. That stairway that was discussed is the top middle photo. Again, that'll be used as a safe means of egress for those constructing the building to access the second floor. Bottom left, stairway A2. So this is a communicative stair between the two stories, specifically within the grade area, so that connect the classroom wings from the first to second floor, and that will look out towards the west. So this is the very northwest portion of the building. The cafeteria is your center bottom photo. You can see a lot of the steel has been set with roof joists on. At this point, all the roof joists are on, and they're actually building walls, as you can start to see on the right side of that photo. And then the far right side photo is the third grade hallway with HVAC going in. So as the walls wrap up, the MEP trades, and that is an example of one being installed. Additional photos specifically on the outside. Upper left, the northeast cafeteria and the exterior As mentioned, majority of that steel has been set, and now they're building block walls up so that the exterior material can be placed over the top of it. Bottom left is the brick facade on Area B, so it may seem a little bit odd of why just a small portion of brick was being installed, but actually this is where all the electrical and gas service is coming into the building on the north side, right outside of the cafeteria maintenance portion of the building. And so they placed the brick in that area so that they could get that infrastructure in place and get permanent power and permanent gas service into the building. Top center, Area D, kind of the K1 portion of the building, maybe looks a little bit odd from the street as there's just a masonry tower in the middle. As discussed last month, that is the penthouse and the storage space beneath it that will serve the classrooms that surround it. Bottom center is the south side of Area C. So this area actually looks a little bit different today with more steel up and additional walls, but this will form the art, music, and the office area within the center of the building. Upper right, Area C, facing north. So you're starting to see all the footings and them prepping for block walls in Area C and actually looking towards that two-story portion that is the classroom area. And then kind of rounding ourselves out, Area A in the southwest corner. And this is looking at that two-story classroom volume, probably about center way. Where you see the crane there on the right would be the playground for the school, and looking at the two-story volume. Projected work for the next 30 days. We're going to start to see window installation. Right now they have temporary enclosures with visqueen and plywood in the openings. Those will be pulled out as windows are available and permanent windows will be installed. Roof insulation and EPDM, which is the finished roofing material installation, will go over the two-story portion of the building. Window installation as well in both Area A and Area B. Structural steel and masonry exterior walls, primarily in that cafeteria area. MEP rough-ins as we will continue over the many months to come. The Area A second floor concrete topping will be placed by the time we hit the holidays. And as I described with the visqueen and the temporary window enclosures, as well as the new window installation, they will begin to start pumping heat into the building. This is a critical milestone for many other trades or contractors to be on site, so we can start having studs and drywall and all of those finishes start to occur inside of a tempered heated space. And hand it over to Julie.
Okay, thank you. So we are pleased to announce that Menominee Elementary School is going to be known as the Blue Jays. The Blue Jay received the majority of votes out of staff and students, so students that would be coming or slated to come to Menominee Elementary School participated in the survey. We worked with Bray Architects to design the logo, to design the colors, to match the color scheme, etc. The school colors are going to be blue and white, representing the Blue Jay. And once again, they were inspired by the Blue Jay and the natural surroundings, from the lake to the green grass within the park, and then going into our neighborhood. And so here is our mascot, the Blue Jay from Menominee Elementary School. So, any questions?
Mr. Considine, we often hear when we receive these reports that we are on schedule or on time. How would you depict where we are in terms of a timeline at this point?
Yeah, I would say that we are on time and on schedule. I think everyone, including the contractors, knew that we were up for a tight schedule with this one, understanding that we could not tear or move into this site, knowing the school was operational, and then having roughly 15 months to tear down and rebuild. Thankfully, the weather has been somewhat mild for us. We will see what January has to bring. But thankfully, we can say that we are on time and on budget.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Love the logo, too.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nehans, budget variance ESSER funds update.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This month's report is for activity through the month of November. Just want to do a couple highlights for you. Currently, our operating funds, again, Funds 10 and Fund 27. Our operating funds are projecting out a slight deficit to budget. We're looking at just under a $700,000 deficit. The business office will continue to monitor this. Also want to put the deficit in a projected deficit in a different light. That represents about a 0.5% variance at this point, so less than 0.5% is what we're looking at as a variance right now. The food service department is forecasting a deficit currently. Again, with food service, we receive revenue on a very delayed basis. So we're typically about 3 months behind when claims get submitted to get in. I'll have a little bit better idea come the end of January, February. By the February meeting, I'll have a little bit better idea for you. The first month claim for the school year, the September month, is actually in, and our revenue was about $150,000 more than what we would project on trend. So I'm pretty confident to say that the deficit that's in the report isn't going to be to that projection. I need a couple more months of data to be able to kind of give you a little better idea of how we project out to budget, but I'm pretty confident if we can keep the revenues, claims coming in like we did in September, that we'll be okay with in the end of that, for that fund. The recreation department is currently trending for a surplus, which is good for them. Usually at this time of year, we wouldn't be trending out to that point. So kudos to them on keeping their programs in track for this. Are there any questions? Okay.
Excuse me, I did have one on there was a link we could access, and I had a question on slide 1, the projected year-end fund balance of 10.9%. What is the recommended fund balance for us?
We have our fund balance right now at 16%.
Okay.
So let me pull that report up to make sure we're looking at the same number. Which page did you see that?
I think it was slide 1. Well, okay.
On slide 1. Yeah, I'll have to look at that because that doesn't seem correct, because with a projected $700,000 deficit, again, that's less than 0.5% of our operating funds. So if that's where we landed, we'd still have a fund balance in that 15.5% range.
Okay.
So I'll have to do some looking at what data is behind that graph specifically to see if we can either get a better explanation for you or get that cleared up so it is a little more accurate to where our projection would be.
I thought we were generally in the mid-teens, and so this 10.9% looked low to me, that's all.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got one question. One part of the report stuck out to me, and that was B, under section 3. Salaries are causing the current variance. I believe the payment of the stipend is a part of the current projection variance. The stipends are not part of trend and will be throwing off the trend percentages in the forecasting. Right, so we're budget forecasting, we're not where we need to be, things can come in, and our budget will end up like it should be. But how is the stipends affecting that budget variance right now?
Yep. So what happened with this, because we hadn't done stipends in the past, so the way the program or the system works is it takes our 5-year history and then divides it out by month on how we do our expenditures based on a month, and then that creates our monthly trend. So on the monthly trend, when we're putting in the year-to-date activity for the month, it bases that and compares that to what our trend was, and then it does the forecast off of the 5-year trend. So a typical July for the district, our salaries and wages that would be recorded for July would have just been for year-round staff. That would be all that would be recorded. So say that dollar amount is $5 million, just for an example. This year, we paid out stipends in that month of July.
Okay.
So this year's July, our salaries and wages were, say, 7.5 million. So the system looks at that and goes, oh, so 7.5 million for July is our new 6%, if that's our trend per month. It's going to extrapolate that out for the whole year and then say, well, if that's what we do and keep going forward, this is where your variance is going to be. So we did make a slight adjustment from last month to this month. Again, I had kind of reported out last month that we were going to look at that and see how we look at that and address that within the model. We did. Last month, we were looking at a deficit, projected deficit of about 1.3, 1.4 million. So this one came in at 700,000. So I think the adjustment we made is a more reflective of what accuracy we're going to have. I do want another month to make sure that we're getting closer. But again, when we're looking at that's 0.5% of a variance, I think we're pretty close at this point to not wanting to mess too much on that, because the more you start trying to fine tune it, the more you also run the risk of over adjusting it and not getting a good number on the back end. Does that make sense?
So, I mean, that's probably confusing to most people, but what I got out of that was because we put the salaries in our budget forecasting model, or those stipends with salaries, then the budget forecasting model is projecting out that our deficit could be greater because it can't account for that input number from month to month.
Correct. It takes a larger input from the first month and says, that's my base, and then extrapolates that out. So because we had a larger variance from trend, it takes that across the rest of the 11 months.
So last month, excuse me, not last night, we were forecasting a deficit at 1.3 million, you said, and this month, that same forecasting model is saying we're at 700,000. So if it's off, like you're thinking it may be, we could be back to budget within a month or two, maybe. I don't know if it forecasts like it did from last month to this month.
Yeah, we'll have to see where the overall ends up. With that specifically, we look more specifically at that salary, because we can line item that into just that, and I don't have that in front of me of where that actually landing. Again, I think we made an adjustment that gets us closer to where the reality is going to be for salaries. But again, we will keep watch on that to see. It's just hard when you change your trend. That first couple years of changing your trend is trying to figure out how that truly impacts that.
Well, thank you. I don't know if I simplified that at all for the public. I have no clue, but I tried to simplify it for myself.
Sorry, I can't make that a little simpler for you. That it gets a little complicated when you're talking about the system.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nihans.
Mrs. Conrad Peters, Oshkosh Area School District, AMRO boundary update.
Thank you. So we were approached this summer where we found out, or specifically the AMRO area school district found out, that a land swap that had come to the board and was board approved in November of 2018 did not result in the anticipated land swap that was wanted. And so when you look at your written report, you're going to see a map, and on that map there was an area labeled A and an area labeled B, which were small sections of land. The intention was the small sections of land to be swapped between the Oshkosh Area School District and AMRO, not the entire lots. And so in the process of executing the swap, it was found, the DPI found that in the way that they executed the process, that's how the land swap got messed up, for the lack of a better term. So we are looking to correct this between the Amro and the Oshkosh area school districts. And between our two school districts, we agreed that we should do this, we should initiate it so that we can make this right by our property owners. And so with that, we have had the swap that's being proposed approved, reviewed, and double reviewed to make sure that we are doing it correctly this time and as intended by the landowners. Also, we have students that are impacted by this. And so both the Oshkosh and the Amro school districts, we came up with a short-term and long-term solution to make sure that the families and the students had no interruption in their education and that they were being educated in the manner or in the school district that they had chosen, and that we were doing it in a way that met the needs of the families. And so coming before you in January is going to be 3 different orders that you will approve by resolution in order to complete the actual land swap.
I don't know, were you done? I'm ready for questions. And if I remember this process, the Amro School District votes the same? Like,
Correct.
both boards have to make the vote?
Correct. And so we've worked together, so they have this on their agenda. The information was presented to them tonight. We notified the landowners, and actually 2 of the 3 were present at listening session this evening and supported this. They then went to the AMRO meeting and supported that as well. And so each of the 3 orders are worded exactly the same, and once again, we checked and double-checked this, are coming to you and to the AMRO School Board in January to be executed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Dr. Herzog.
Just a clarification, this sort of land swap requires the approval of both districts, Mrs. Szilagyi.
Yeah.
If not, if one approves and the other does not, there is a school district boundary appeals process that involves going before some folks at the State Department, the DPI, and having representatives, board representatives from a small, a medium, and a large school district hear both sides of the story and then making a decision. I've been part of that for a couple of these land swaps where one district approved and the other did not, but I'm anticipating that because of the action taken in November of 2018, this board would support what the 2018 board had agreed to.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Conrad.
Education Committee meeting minutes, Mr. Carnes.
Sorry, I might be coughing as I read this, but we'll get through it. There was a lot that we discussed on Thursday, December 7th, so for maybe one of the first times ever, I'm probably just going to read this. So sit back and enjoy. Item number 1, we talked K-5 math update, Bridges 3rd edition. Julie Holmes was there, and Holmes provided a history of math adoptions and assured that group that Bridges 3rd edition aligns with equitable teaching practices. Piloting would start with professional development in January, followed by teaching. Full implementation would be scheduled for next school year. The program has not been completely overhauled, so the minor changes should not be overwhelming for teachers. The enhancements should provide smooth teaching for teachers with built-in assistance to meet the needs of all learners. The built-in professional development and emphasis on equity-based teaching practices will help teachers to understand how to give everyone in the classroom access to their grade level standards. The cost for the update is $81,000. When adopted, the cost was $247,000. When looking for a curriculum, we want to obviously be sure that we are aligned to state and national standards. When following this program as it was designed, results should be evident. Erin Cole was also there. Erin and Julie are visiting math classrooms with principals to observe a math lesson in progress and then discussing the experience with the principal and providing feedback for the principal to give to the teacher. Teaching principals what they should be looking for is what helps teachers to grow. This information also helps our math ISTs, our math instructional support teachers, to assist teachers in their instruction through student-centered coaching cycles. The order for materials would need to take place in May. Therefore, the board will receive a report at the first meeting in April on the progress, with the resolution coming to the board at the second meeting in April for adoption. Pilot teachers would start after January, professional development. So more to come on that one. All right, number 2, update on courses, late grade change. So we made some course changes or approvals a couple meetings back. Jackie Kiffmeyer presented to the board that Fox Valley Tech, the day after we approved it, changed one of the items from grades 10 to 12 to grades 11 to 12. So that's the medical terminology class. And then the district will be providing a health pilot for grade 12 students on health and wellness. There's a gap between 9th grade and 12th grade, and this will provide students with a deeper dive into topics. Some include human anatomy, nutrition, human growth and development, etc. If the pilot goes well, then a resolution will come before the board for approval of the health course going forward. The district is now looking at digital AP Social Studies books for the American Government and Politics course. All right, number 3, we heard about StudySync earlier today. We have a StudySync field study update. Jackie Kiffmeyer had provided the committee and group with information about how the grades 6 through 8 field study has progressed. She explained that there was a rocky rollout with the first unit, and there were staffing issues, but the IST, instructional support teachers, literacy coaches, and teachers were willing to dig in and fight through the change. In November, when they regrounded, teachers loved grade level rigor and the digital workbook. They liked the concept and program and knowing what to teach, as well as the standardized approach, and all classes receiving the same education. Teachers were given the flexibility with books to expand and keep students engaged in learning. This has been piloted last year, and for this year is a field study. Kiffmeyer stated that StudySync feedback will be finalized in the spring, and said they're listening to all feedback after about the rollout and the progression. Sam Coleman spoke of the way principals have been exposed and are engaging as well as the timelines for the rollouts. An issue that was uncovered is that principals didn't have enough information to provide support to teachers who felt overwhelmed. Instruction has been provided to principals about what literacy will look like between now and 2027, with how teachers instruct and interact being the largest piece. Principals must build culture and have the necessary tools to connect the dots. The intent of the reorganization of the executive team, which we went through recently, is to provide more support as instructional leaders. Over the next 6 months, key performance indicators will cascade down to the building level, with each building having 4 KPIs, with math and literacy at the top. This takes time to evolve, but the results will be seen. Principals are involved in professional development opportunities, and work is being done during principal meetings to assist them in understanding their roles. Critical conversations about pieces are being presented and used, and the feedback being given to teachers after observations will be important. The feedback being received about feeling overwhelmed is more about the increased presence, which provides increased feedback, which may at times equate to increased pressure. However, having principals more engaged in the instructional part of their job, instead of spending 80% of their time on safety and behaviors, will evolve into a system of growth. We know that principals can't do this alone, and we need to focus the right people in different areas to assist. 2 more. Number 4. Common formative assessment. Jackie Kiffmeyer stated there was not a smooth transition from elementary to secondary regarding the common formative assessment. Timeframes are scheduled differently at each level. The assessments are occurring monthly, but next year the district will be aligning common formative assessments to each unit to reduce assessments to 4 instead of assessments being done monthly. In October, the middle school saw a 10% efficiency, with it increasing to 15% in November. High school saw 12% efficiency in October. We're seeing that it is working, but need to realize assessment testing causes anxiety. And lastly, proficiency grading discussion. So Alexandra Piester, Carl Traeger Middle School IST was introduced. She reflected on how the past grading systems for middle school worked and looked at what sparked the change. There were declining proficiencies prior to COVID, but COVID amplified the numbers. The lowering of the bar has been realized. Moving forward will require the need to make sure what the standard is requiring and grade on that, while making sure kids are being pushed. Everyone needs to adjust and be all right with grading accurately. Grades were subjective in the past and included behaviors and tardies. The district is working to get high-level expectations. Proficiency scoring is hard, especially the first year, but Building blocks are in place to lead to a better system focused on student learning, where students are involved and have expectations from the beginning. Teachers focus on specific reads and know where to push. Data is driving decisions. Learning targets and expectations are clear, and outcomes are aligned to state standards. Students need to show what they can do beyond testing and how to advance to a 4 in the grading scale. Consistency is key. It is about what the student is learning, and it is challenging to all students. There is more work to be done, and more communication needs to be sent to parents to assist. We have been using this grading system in elementary school for 20 years. It was difficult back then. It will take some time to adjust for all, but in the end, it is about what a student is actually learning, not just the test scores. And at the end of that conversation we did here, and we're going to talk more about it the next one, but that this is not an uncommon grading system in our community, in other school districts around us as well. So just some bumps in the road as we move on. There was another item about WASB policy perspectives in Act 20, but I'm going to skip that one because I've talked long enough. We will be meeting again on Thursday, January 4th, and I'm sure we'll have a lot on that agenda too. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
We move now, thank you very much, Mr. Carnes. We move now to the non-agenda related public forum. And we'll see if we have anybody signed up for that.
Non-agenda.
Okay. We have three speakers this evening. The first one is going to be Jamie Hoff. And when addressing the board, clearly state your name. You can come right up here.
And Margaret is going to join me as well, so we're going to do it together.
Perfect. And the topic you wish to address, if you're acting as a spokesperson for a particular group of individuals, please indicate the group that you represent. And clearly and concisely state your matters of concern and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. I'm Jamie Hoff. I am the OPEA co-president with Mary Margaret Isley. I am a special ed para for 16 years. Address is 4381 Soda Creek Road, number 10, in Oshkosh.
Thank you.
Did you want Mary's to right away?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, so we're here today to talk about the para wages and our working conditions. And several of you heard this earlier at the listening session, but I wanted to make sure that everyone heard this and the community as well. Paras today no longer are just reading books to students or helping teachers with bulletin boards. Our jobs consist of much more than that. One of the items I want to bring to your attention is the physical abuse that is happening from our students. It is not just in the special ed, but in the regular ed classrooms as well. The number of violent behaviors we have in our schools right now is at an all-time high. Parents are coming to school wondering, how badly am I going to get hurt today? And that's not okay. We should be actually getting hazard pay for all the bruises, bites, open scratches, headbutts, and even some going to the hospital for their pains that they've had to endure. Another point that needs to be brought up is the number of open positions on weekend right now is at about 19. And who do you think are filling in for those jobs that there are no candidates for that job? It's the paras that are working right now. So we're taking on the job of two paras, one for both jobs. Not to mention that we also wear many hats every day, such as custodians, food service, nurses, behavior specialists, etc. We are definitely overworked and underpaid. I recently learned of many wage discrepancies that are within the same job categories, which has frustrated the paras involved and also to the OPA board. One of the items that we found out were that para wages in compared to other support staff are as follows: that the starting para rate is at $15.48 an hour. Office techs start at $17.33 an hour. Janitorial custodial staff are at $18.26 an hour, and secretaries are starting at $19.11 an hour. And you might wonder what keeps us coming back to that job every day. Why do we still want to work here? And it's because we love the kids. We have created bonds with our students and their families. You have an awesome group of dedicated paras working in the Oshkosh School District. We have so much love and experience to give the children. So you just can't throw that away by keeping us at the bottom of the pay scale. We have acquired about 160 out of about 200 para signatures who are frustrated with our pay scale, and they support the petition that we have here today. The paras across the district need to be a priority in the budget. If we can't increase the if wages can't be increased this school year, it has to happen next year. We need higher wages, or unfortunately, you will be losing more amazing and irreplaceable paras. Thank you. And we have the petition with the signatures if someone wanted to have those.
I'd like to read the
Thank you.
petition to you before we hand it over to you. The Oshkosh Area Paraprofessional Association, our petition reads, we love working with the children and seeing them grow through our time supporting and guiding them. We understand how important our work is to the Oshkosh area public schools. We know that our collaboration with the outstanding teachers in the district is essential to do a strong public school. We are challenged each day with increasing student needs and our ever-increasing workloads. We continue to come to work each day believing that positive change is possible. We have personal budgets that are stretched because of our low pay, and we struggle to make ends meet. Therefore, we, the undersigned, call our school board and administration to immediately increase paraprofessional wages. Once we sign this, we're hoping for a $3 an hour wage by January 1st. We understand that probably isn't going to happen, but we do want you to very much take it very seriously, what we're asking, and commence a salary study of the OPA and make fundamental and lasting positive changes to our compensation. We do have the signatures, and the quickness and easiness of them all signing was
Overwhelming.
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
they brought it to us as the para board, and it's a very serious matter, and we talked at length at the listening
Thank you
session.
very much.
So thank
And
you for
gotten
listening.
some
Absolutely.
positive
Thank you.
questions, so that we hope that we can continue the communication and get some of these things resolved for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. And next up is Stephanie Dronsky.
Good evening, school board and community members. My name is Stephanie Dronsky. I am speaking tonight about my experience.
I need your address.
Sorry,
That's all right.
127 West 25th, Oshkosh.
And you said your name was?
Stephanie Dronsky.
Oh,
Hi. I'm speaking tonight about my experience working in the Oshkosh Area School District. As of February this year, I'm a breast cancer survivor, which involved a double mastectomy and breast reconstruction over a 4-month period. I was employed for 7+ years as an EBD paraprofessional at Merrill Middle and elementary schools, which brought me much joy. To see the positive impact I made on students was extremely fulfilling. Sadly, I am no longer employed in this district by my choice, not because of the students or the staff that I worked with, but for the lack of care and support from the district's administration. On October 17th, I was attacked and severely injured by a student, causing my breast implants to rupture, resulting in breast reconstruction for the second time. Having to go through the pain and suffering again in less than 6 months was emotionally and physically devastating. The treatment of paraprofessionals and adults in general is unacceptable. They are often overlooked, they are grossly underpaid, and treated like second-class citizens. Working conditions are unsafe for the staff and students, and we are expected to do the impossible without the proper tools. Students' behaviors are beyond our control. Academic support is secondary to this. For example, students with severe behaviors are taking away from the opportunity of other students to excel. We can't keep turning a blind eye to this. It's a huge disservice to our children. And for that, shame on you. The level of verbal abuse, physical abuse and assaults on our paraprofessionals on a daily basis is deplorable. We get kicked, spit on, sworn at, punched, bitten, things thrown at you, and yet we're expected to come into work every day and do it all over again with no support. In my experience, I have been financially punished for errors admitted by Central on 4 separate occasions. When we are getting paid poverty-level wages, that's disgusting. You can't continue to do that over and over and expect people to be like, oh, hey, that's cool, I'll come and work for a paycheck for $1.93. Decisions were made about my paychecks without my permission. And as a result, I could no longer afford to work for this district. I felt like I was forced out. The district's silence spoke volumes, and it shows how we as paraprofessionals are valued. Quite frankly, it's extremely disheartening. This district emphasizes equality, but that is not apparent. Now I'm here telling you a portion of my story. There are many other stories out there. I am here to be a voice for those who feel like they cannot speak up or speak for their equality. We need to be shown that we are valued, we need to be shown that we are needed, and we need to be shown that we can have dignity. If you do not change how you treat all of your employees, you will continue to lose many. These actions greatly impact the students that we love and we continue to influence. We truly care about these students, and you should truly care about your employees. Now, personally, I'm not expecting anything out of this. What I would love to see is change. Change for the paras, change for our students. They're the ones that we are ultimately here for. You know, it's true when people say that a building doesn't make the school. The staff and the students make the school. And I am forever grateful for my Merrill family. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
So this leaves the stated to the individual.
Okay. Next, we have agenda-related public forum. David Lynch.
David Lynch, I don't live in district. Do you need my out-of-district address?
Yes, I do.
Okay, W143 and 6633 Aspen Drive, Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. I'm a former OASD employee as a school counselor, and my first job out of high school was a full-time school custodian here in the district, so it's good to be back. Dr. Davis and members of the OASD Board of Education, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I'm here on behalf of my family, including my sister Kristen, who's sitting with me in the back, as well as members of the Oshkosh West High School community in support of individual considered resolution items 7 and 8 on tonight's agenda, the naming of the Little Theater, C29 at Oshkosh West. Earlier this fall, I met with Oshkosh West Athletics and Activities Director Brad Jadarski and English teacher, drama director Scotty Thurwatcher to discuss a proposal to rename the Little Theater after my father, Tom Lynch. I believe a copy of that proposal is included in your board packet for tonight's meeting. My father taught in Oshkosh for 37 years. He began at Webster Stanley Middle School and then moved to West in 1972. During his career, my father taught primarily English and language arts and served as drama director at both schools. Some may say that my father's legacy is best measured by his forensics team's 17 consecutive state excellence awards and 4 state titles. Others may cite his one-act play teams that qualify for state competition 16 times, having received the highest honor, Critics' Choice, 8 times, in addition to 10 state director awards and dozen individual acting honors. Awards from his teams lie in the hallways outside Little Theater at West, and another will be added soon as West's production of Orphan Train brought home a Critics' Choice last month. It gives my father a great sense of pride that the tradition of excellence in theater continues to this day, especially under the direction of his former student, Scotty Thurwatcher. While success in competition alone deserves recognition, my father's impact is felt beyond the winner's podium, however. If he were here tonight, and to be honest, he knows nothing about this, by the way. This whole proposal is not in his knowledge. He is not one for the spotlight, which is odd for a director and an actor. But my father, if he were here, he would say that his impact was on individual students with whom he taught, coached, and directed. Kids are his legacy. My father has the uncanny ability to make every student, and frankly every parent, staff member, coworker, feel like they're the only one in the room. My father never repeated a show or a one-act play during his tenure. He wanted all alumni to feel they were the only ones ever to play a certain role at Oshkosh West production. His inclusive approach to education was long before diversity and equity were infused into schools. Students, regardless of socioeconomic status, family background, religious tradition, sexual identity, cognitive ability, political leanings, and life experiences, were all welcome in his classroom within the theater program and encouraged to find their voice. Everyone found a home. My father was a workhorse, often putting in 13, 14-hour workdays. He would arrive at school before 5 a.m. and stay long after school days were over. Almost unheard of, my father never missed a day of work in 37 years, except when he was awarded the USA Today Teacher of the Year Award, for which he traveled to D.C. for the ceremony. A plaque commemorating this honor hangs outside the Little Theater to this day. In a way, the theatrical classroom at West may be listed as C29 on school maps, but it has been unofficially seen as Tom Lynch Theater for over 20 years. I ask that the Board of Education make the name official and approve individually considered resolution items 7 and 8. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move to number 7 and 8, individually considered resolutions. Number 7, waiver of policy 7250.01, naming of district facilities.
So moved. Second, Herzog.
Discussion?
Yes.
Yep.
Discussion? Dr. Herzog?
I would just like to say I support this. Anyone who walks in that hallway between what is called the Little Theater and the library sees the multitude of plaques that recognize the success of students in our forensics program and in our drama program. We have been so fortunate, so blessed over many, many years with the arts, including the art teachers, those known as art teachers, those known as music teachers, and those known as drama teachers and forensics teachers. And I have an opportunity to see Mr. Lynch and his wife walking in my neighborhood on a regular basis. And in order to do this, we have to waive the policy, because the policy does not allow us to name a facility for someone who is still alive, and I know Mr. Lynch is very much alive, fortunately. So that's why we would have to waive the policy. But I strongly support waiving the policy in view of the many, many students he has influenced, including a former board member, former board president, Bob Peschel, who told me today he strongly supports this resolution. So thank you.
Any other comments?
Nope.
Call the roll, please.
Ray.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
DeWitt. Aye. Herzog.
Aye.
Carnes.
Aye.
Solaji.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. And let's move on to number 8, naming of Oshkosh West High School Little Theater.
So moved.
Second.
Carnes and DeWitt.
Call the roll.
Can I-
I'm sorry, discussion?
Can I say something?
Yes.
So, you guys have heard me say this before, but this is one of the fun things about being on the board in your community where you went to high school, because I had Mr. Lynch as a teacher. And so, graduated in '99. He was, my wife as well had him as a teacher. We talked about this coming up, and there are teachers who love what they do, and there's teachers that you can feel their energy. And he was one of those. He was special, and everybody knew who he was. So thank you for speaking tonight. He was a great teacher, and this is an honor that he deserves, and I will support that. Thinking down the road for the referendum, as we go down the road and Oshkosh West High School may be replaced years down the road, I hope there are still ways when that happens that the people who have things named, and maybe think about it, have that transferred over to a new building, because they helped lay the groundwork of where we are going, and they deserve that. So
Yeah.
just don't want it to be a short-term thing, because he deserves longer. So.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's very similar to what we talked about at excuse me, with South Park. A similar
Okay.
dedication, and so yeah, we'll make sure we keep track of all of
Excellent.
that.
Thank you.
Dr. Davis, would you like to say something?
Yeah, one, I just want to thank David. We worked together, David and I actually worked together at Oshkosh West for a little bit, and I had the pleasure of some of my first professional experiences were with Tom as a colleague. And so certainly when you're coming into a new building, you're always looking to see, the veterans, and he was always open to talk and really led by example, really an unassuming professional, but just a champion for kids. I remember distinctly talking to some of my students about who their go-tos were, and consistently they were Tom Lynch, without a doubt, and that was spoke volumes when students would talk about that. So so I think it's appreciate the board support. I think it's very deserving, and looking forward to the surprise that will come up. And I see Tom at the Y most mornings, I wanted to wait until this and let the family discuss it, and I'll certainly make sure to check in with them. So thank you.
That'd be great. Dr. Herzog.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that this resolution includes a budget item to actually install a plaque there. So it's not simply saying that the name will change, but that it will be commemorated in the form of a plaque that will last in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Call the roll, please.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Hewitt. Aye. Herzog.
Aye.
Kearns.
Aye.
Solaji.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Great. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go back to our workshop. District and school report cards. Dr. Coleman.
All right, good evening to the board and to those who are listening and joining us. I'm here tonight to present on our key performance indicator, specifically looking at our district's report card, and then in this report I also look at school report cards as well. All right, so let me do it this way. So to just begin our conversation, and begin this workshop, I'm going to lead with just showing where we are with our rating. So we are in our learning and academics, and then the district report card makes up 40% of our overall rating in this key performance indicator area. Under learning and academics core area, our goal is to improve student learning and to ensure that all students are college, career, and community ready. Specifically, when we look at our district report card, this report card is issued by the Department of Public Instruction, and it produces an annual report for every public school that is funded in the state of Wisconsin as part of the state accountability system. The Department of Public Instruction's district report card includes data on multiple indicators over multiple years across 4 priority areas. Those areas we'll talk about in detail tonight. They include student achievement, growth, target group outcomes, which is a newer area, but we'll talk about that, and then on track to graduation and post-secondary success. These publicly shared report card ratings are also an indicator of our overall student achievement and student engagement. So looking at our 2023 report card rating, we are at 3 stars. This is consistent with where we were in the previous year. We're at meets expectations, and that is us being in the 58 to 69.9 percentage points. It is important that we lead in here with some really important celebrations, and I'll talk about the first bullet point there in detail a little bit later, but it is important to note that Oshkosh North and Oshkosh West are 2 of the top 3 scoring high schools in the Fox Valley Association Conference. So this is huge, and it is important that we acknowledge all of the hard work happening at Oshkosh West and Oshkosh North to promote student growth. Overall, the district continues to meet expectations. As mentioned, this is where we were in our previous year's rating as well. And we remain focused on growth within our system. We know that growth is a strength of ours, and as we continue to meet the goals that we've set, the growth is clearly indicated in our report card ratings, and we'll talk about that shortly. Another celebration is that we are engaging in instructional practices. We're improving the use of our assessment data on a regular basis and aligning meaningful professional development and learning opportunities as a strategic way to decrease the number of schools in the meets few expectations category, moving from 5 schools during the 2021-2022 school year to 3 schools during the 2022-2023 school year. We also know that we have some areas to focus on to improve our results, and we've had this conversation around areas for improvement actually in our most recent school board meetings as we look through key performance indicators through various lenses, so our reading achievement, our math achievement, even student engagement around our SABRES reports. And so as we look at this data around our school report cards, we see the same story being told around areas for improvement. And what we'll reiterate is we are maintaining a strategic focus on the same key areas that we've talked about in previous presentations so that we can see this growth materialize into indicators like our school report card. So one of those areas for improvement is maintaining our focus on explicit and systematic phonics and foundational literacy instruction, as well as math instruction in early grades. And so as we talked about in previous board presentations and workshops, explicit and systematic early literacy is critical to student success throughout our entire system, particularly as we look at how students rely on those foundational skills as they get to grades 3 through 8. So again, as we talk about that in our next bullet point, we're expanding our focus of improvement efforts to grades 3 through 8 to strategically sustain and accelerate student proficiency in literacy and math. So in recent years, again, the focus has been on those early grades, K through 2, and what we're doing is scaling that certainly across our system with a really targeted focus through 8th grade. Some of those examples of targeted focus areas include adopting a universal and comprehensive literacy curriculum for our elementary and our middle schools, and you heard about that earlier tonight in the presentation by Principal Pasquarella with StudySync. Also adopting the most current edition of our math curriculum for our elementary and middle schools, and then consistently leveraging and aligning across the district and content areas highly engaging practices that get students involved in learning, give students an opportunity to engage in small group instruction, giving students multiple ways to demonstrate what they're struggling with and also where they're being successful in doing that, and so that teachers can provide real-time feedback and real-time support. We'll strategically facilitate and support collaboration and change within our system so that as we set expectations around growth and improvement and our goals, that we're doing so in ways that are clear, in ways that are reasonable, and in ways that are manageable. We are exploring improvements and implementing improvements to address significant math and literacy achievement inequities, specifically for our African American and Black students, students who receive special education services, and students who receive ESOL services or English speakers of other languages. And we'll talk about that when we get to our next slide around what those specific systemic improvements consist of. The first thing is how we've reorganized our district leadership so that we can provide targeted and routine instructional leadership support to our principals. So under our current structure, we now have directors of elementary education, one specifically focused on math, and another specifically focused on literacy, as well as a secondary director, again, to provide that specific support to principals as they lead instructional strategies in their schools. You've also may have heard about student-centered coaching and conscious discipline, and we're leveraging these professional learning and philosophical approaches to how we engage students through an equity lens, specifically focusing on our target groups. And those target groups are defined in our school report card data, which I'll show in a moment. Also, more explicit focus is being placed on classroom engagement strategies. And so this allows us to know in real time how students are doing, if they're checked into the learning. And some of the ways that we do that is through exit tickets, which are just quick checkups at the end of a lesson or end of a class to know, did students get it or where did most students struggle? Small group instruction, and then using assistive technologies like speech-to-text features, and even the whiteboards that many students are working on and writing on, so that in real time they can practice and apply the skills that they're learning. But then also it gives the teacher an opportunity to see, again, the students who are proficient in those tasks, and also the students who might need some more targeted support. Other specific examples include increasing teacher and specialist collaboration to implement individualized education programs and individualized language plans in ways that enhance engagement and instructional strategies in all of our classrooms for students who are eligible for receiving specific support either through linguistic needs or special education services. And then also we're analyzing our behavior, attendance, and truancy occurrences on an instant-by-instance basis to identify and address specific academic needs. So what that means is if we see students who are repeatedly disengaged or being sent to the office, or even support being asked to come to the classroom to support students, we're looking at, are there academic implications for this? So is that behavior a communication that a student might be struggling to read or struggling to perform the formulas in math? And then really engaging students so that we're not just responding to the behavior, but that we're being really intentional about addressing academic skills gaps that might exist.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
So the specific examples of systemic improvements, those are kind of proactive changes that we've actually already made before these report cards have come out, right? Those are things that...
These are fairly recent proactive changes, that is correct, yes.
Okay.
So,
I mean,
yep.
A lot of the district leadership, obviously the reorganization, all that stuff, I mean, that's happened months and months ago, right? So
Yes, sir.
I just like the idea that a lot of these are proactive, it's not reactive. This is what we're gonna, and I you know what I mean? I like that story better, that, you know,
Yep.
we know where we have to go, even regardless of what the outcomes are going to be.
Exactly.
And we're gonna continue to move forward.
And we're going to continue in that direction, exactly. And it's important to note that this is what we often refer to as marathon work. And I know that there are certainly quick wins and sprints toward improvement. But what you see listed there, these are strategies that are implemented and need to be implemented over time to sustain the growth that we have set and the goals and sustain progress toward the goals that we have in board policy. But yes, it is important that you, the point that you made around the proactive work that we're doing, and then sticking to these strategies instead of after 2 years or 3 years not seeing wide margins changing, then abandoning those and starting over, but knowing that these have to be applied over time to see the results that we're aiming for. So as I led in the presentation, I talked about the 4 priority areas that make up our school report card score. And then here we just have definitions, so how student achievement is defined. That's specifically in the areas of reading and math, state assessments. Student growth, and that's measured by year-to-year improvement and achievement, value added, which is, again, we see some great examples of that and how that's materialized to increased scores in our school report card, specifically at North High School and then also at West High School. Target group outcomes. These are the outcomes for the students that have the lowest test scores, so in the bottom quartile. And so again, we'll talk about that specifically. We know who the students are in this area. We're providing opportunity to specifically target skills to move these students forward. And then also the 4th part then is the on track to graduation. And this is measured using predictors of high school graduation and potential high school success, post-high school success. So this slide just gives us an overview of, again, the weight for each of those 4 areas and then how that makes up our overall school report card score. And then I'll go into some detail about each of these 4 areas in the slides that precede. So these are our overall school demographics, which we are familiar with. And then if you look at the priority area weights up in the top right-hand corner, that's just a visual of what our score is made up of. And if you look at target groups, we see, and certainly at achievement as well, we see that improvement in these areas, which we've talked about in previous school board meetings, with our English language arts strategies and math strategies, really focusing on our attention in those areas, as well as laser focusing our attention in those areas for students that we know are in the bottom quartile of achievement, are key strategies to increase our overall score, and more importantly, to increase the overall performance of our students. So this breakdown is a visual image that comes directly from our school report card, and it allows you to see exactly the performance in each of those 4 areas, and then how that produces an overall score of our 68.4.
Could you describe growth? Because I know when I'm in the community, people are like, well, what is growth? What does that mean?
Yep.
Where are you growing from? You know, like, is there a way to explain that to the public what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So so we're specifically looking at year-to-year change or year-to-year movement on how students are performing on their state standardized tests. So if a group of students, and I actually believe I have a slide in here that shows it in a more visually understandable way. But essentially, it is the year-to-year improvement or the change year-to-year in how students are performing in reading and math on their state standardized tests. So even if in that measurement we don't see significant movement from basic or below basic to proficient, but students are moving up. So maybe if they were at a 10% or 12% proficiency rate and then move from there to a 30% proficiency rate. So certainly they're still not at proficiency on that below basic advanced, but certainly has shown growth or movement across those areas.
So basically, we're getting students at whatever they come in at.
Correct.
Right? And then growth is year over year, how much they progress.
Correct.
Where they were at on the test, right?
Right.
So we're really good at taking students where they're at and helping them improve on the standardized test that the state chooses for us to apply and measure where they're at.
Exactly, and our growth in that area, really being able to get students, and we've talked about this before in previous presentations around students who are coming in with either background knowledge gaps or just lack of exposure. What our teachers and paraprofessionals and specialists are really good at is wherever students are when they come in, is being able to get students to grow significantly year to year. And we will talk about just through deeper analysis, and this work is happening at schools on an individual level, is really looking at how much growth is needed. So are we talking about a year and a half of growth needed each year to be able to get students caught up, and how long does that need to occur over time to get students who are in the bottom quartile moved up to proficient and advanced? And so the formula and the work in this is extremely intentional, and our directors are working with principals and their teams to understand what growth we need to target. And so for me, it's important that we mention we're looking at growth overall for all students, even students who are proficient and students who are basic, being able to move those students up as well. But then also targeting our growth for students who are in our target groups, which we get to in the next slide.
If I could just interject quickly. So on track to graduation, 4 things stand out to me. The fact that our chronic true absenteeism is below the state average. Am I reading that right? Maybe not.
I don't think so.
No, I think I read it wrong, sorry. Our graduation rate is above the state average, but our 3rd grade English language arts is below the state 8th grade math. And you had presented data earlier to show that our language arts and our math grades 3 through 8 was below the state average. You also stated that the district is taking steps to better define the outcomes in those 2 core areas and to adopt instructional materials that will better match the curriculum. So I'm assuming that in language arts we would see more emphasis in both what we used to call goals and objectives, I think are now called standards. On a greater emphasis on the science of reading, to incorporate more phonics and phonemic awareness and so on than perhaps what we've emphasized in the past.
That is correct. And in addition to that, instruction that is explicitly aligned to standards,
Okay.
also using proficiency-based grading and feedback so that as we are providing feedback to students and their families around how students are performing, rather than providing that feedback simply in the form of pluses or minuses or scores, really looking at proficiency-based grading so that we're clear about where the growth is needed and where students are doing well. So certainly in the instruction, but then also in the grading and the assessment of that instruction.
Thank you.
Can I ask something?
Go
Were you
ahead.
done, sorry?
I am done.
Okay. We had a meeting recently talking about literacy that was passionate and emotional, and it should be, because we weren't hitting the numbers and the standards that we set. But taking this from an earlier conversation with someone else, like, two things can be true at the same time, right? We had a 3% growth in literacy. So while we had a very important meeting about where we're going, we still had growth there.
Right.
And so that's 270 kids, you know, so if we look at it in that capacity. So I think when I see growth, we're growing at a very high level we'll see later on comparative to the state.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean we don't have a lot more work to do, but I think that we can still celebrate the fact that we didn't grow as much as we wanted, but we did grow.
Right. And to your point, our growth outpaces the average growth in the state. And so, again, looking at our growth scores, if you look at in the gray, where we see our state's growth, we're exceeding that. And I think it is important that we note that, and it's important that we celebrate, again, the intentional work that our teachers and paraprofessionals and specialists are doing, specifically in that area of growth. And then looking at, again, just how our growth outpaces where we are in the state.
I mean, I think it's important to have those individual conversations that we had about literacy, but I love this meeting because this gives you such a deep dive into what's going on in our district and in each school individually.
Right.
To see the bigger picture of it all and how it all fits together. So I just think it's important to say that, but also for us to understand that it's not just one thing. There's a lot going on here. So.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And one other comment. I mean, I don't want to take a whole bunch of time, but you know, nationally, we probably can all admit we made some mistakes in instructional material, you know, 20 years ago when we were selling curriculum or whatever, and everyone thought it was the greatest curriculum, and a whole bunch of districts bought it, right? And now there's a shift in, you know, nationwide on how we need to change literacy. And the state even has, you know, Act 20 coming. So hopefully we'll see continued improvement across the country in literacy.
We definitely will see continued improvement. And I would say, whether we call it a mistake or we call it, school districts used the information that they had at the time and the research that they had at that time to make curricular decisions. So what I would say is the information that was out there and the information that was publicly known is what was used to make decisions. And now that more research and more information has emerged, even before that information has become as popular as it has, our school district went down this path, it's my understanding, about 3 years ago, to really dig into more of the science of reading approaches, explicit and systematic early literacy instruction. And we saw that growth, improving results for students in grades kindergarten through second grade. And so as we continue to scale that focus, again, across our elementary schools up into, again, 8th grade, I have no doubt that the type of growth that we saw at the earlier grades with that explicit focus K through 2, we'll continue to see that growth throughout our entire system.
Love your confidence.
Yep.
Well, I just say I can speak to that as a parent, that I feel like the level of explicit instruction my younger children are getting with their literacy has improved. Yes.
Yep. Thank you for noting that. So the target group outcomes, and I'll explain this over the next couple of slides, and this gives us an opportunity to examine our students who we know need more support. And to put this into context, students could need more support for varying reasons. So if they are new to our country, which we'll talk about in a moment, if they have limitations or interruption in their formal education, if they're receiving special education services, these are realities that our students are experiencing, and many of these students then often end up in this target group, and that is consistent with what we see across our state with who ends up in these target groups. For us, again, we know we have specific strategies, and we'll talk about those in a moment. But this priority area, again, it combines the component scores for achievement, growth, chronic absenteeism, and attendance. We'll see in our next slides who we have in this group. And again, we've talked about this in previous board meetings, and so no surprise, our students who are Black or African American, students who are linguistically diverse or English language learners, and the students who receive special education services are the students who we see in our target group areas. In both, here we have data displayed for English language arts, and that is also consistent when we go to math, looking at our students that are in that bottom quartile. So who score below basic or basic. And so, again, this is information that we've talked about, that we are aware of, and we have specific and explicit strategies, some of which I explained earlier, that we are putting in place and will continue to implement and scale over time so that we can address these numbers. Again, we believe that these results do not reflect our potential, and so we are committed to the strategies that we have in place so that we can make sure that all of our students can thrive and experience the very best that our school has to offer them. As we look at how we've trended over the last 5 years, again, while we have remained in the overall meets expectation area, we did slightly drop from last year. We were at 6.87 and then dropped those 3 points to 6.84. There may be some question around the statistical significance of 6.87 to, sorry, 68.7 to 68.4. Just statistically, how significant is that? I would say that we are in a very comparable place, about the same as we have been over the last couple of years. Looking at how we compare to the school districts in the Fox Valley, again, size of the systems are important to consider as well. We are at 68.4. As we look at some of the school districts in the valley, just where that range is and where we are at this time. On a bright note, though, as we look at the conference high school report card ratings, again, this is something that is extremely important that we lift up and are proud of, and that we celebrate both in this space and in the community. Not suggesting that we don't have work to do, because we do, and we all agree with that, but also acknowledging that the work that we have been doing, that it has resulted in growth that has pushed our schools, North High School into exceeds expectation, and again, Oshkosh West at exceeds expectation as well. So this is praiseworthy and worthy of lifting up and acknowledging, while we also acknowledge we have work that we are committed to continuing, so that we can continue to see this growth and then be in the top 2 and stay in the top 2.
Are they going to hang a banner for conference champs?
I think we should.
Yeah, that's a good
So-
idea.
Good idea.
Dr. Coleman, can you go to the slide before that real quick?
Yes.
And this is the comparison of schools and
Districts.
And districts.
Yeah,
Okay.
these
and
are districts,
The
all right,
next
yeah.
slide is schools.
Our high schools.
High schools.
High schools, yep.
Got it, okay.
Yep.
Think athletic conference.
Got it,
Yep.
okay. So, and I just want to point out that Kimberly has one high school, Winneconne has one high school, Neenah has one high school, and so that's not apples to apples when we compare ourselves to these other smaller schools that have more resources.
Exactly, and that is the point that I want to make sure to just reiterate, just that the noting on the slide that you have slide that we have here, that the size of the system and of the district, that matters when we look at just where we are. All right, thank you for that point. All right, and then earlier in the presentation, I talked about the movement of previously 5 schools that were at meets few expectations to now moving that to 3. This information is also located right on our school report card. But again, just our significantly exceeds, and we'll talk about which schools in a moment make up the schools that are in each of these categories. So as we look at that, we'll start with our high schools. And so looking at change from our previous year, again, we see North jumping up 3 points, and then West just dropping slowly, but again, both schools being in the exceeds expectations. When we look at our middle schools, again, we have 2 of our schools in the significantly exceeds expectations, and so we see those numbers here. All right, and then as we move on to our elementary schools, we'll just give you a moment to take a look there at our school's current score this year and then change from the previous year.
Dr. Davis, I just want to ask you a question. Asked that same thing last year. Looking at the results from individual schools, you guys look through everything. Are we confident in the team that we have going forward, in these buildings, and knowing that the results aren't, there's so much that goes into this, it's not, it's not, easy to see, and I'm sure, people should be upset by certain results and happy about others, and know that there's still work to do either way. So I guess, do you want to speak to kind of how did the principals and how did the team take some of these, and what does that look like going forward?
Yes, certainly, all of our schools, took a look at what these results were, and these results come out in November, so every school also has had action plans. Being a continuous improvement district, these are things that we just do on an ongoing basis. So this provides us, really with a lagging indicator of a reflection of the work that we did, and then looking at patterns or things that we can discover to be able to either, reinforce particular areas that we're already working on, or be able to take a look at some new areas. So so each one of our schools has gone through that process. I had a good conversation with Kristen Berger, who's at Roosevelt, and talked about what she had done with her team, and to be able to really rally around a difficult outcome, but to really make the best of that. And again, this is an opportunity. We know that this is our kids. They're very committed to the work, and just really proud of the leadership that our principals, that our teachers, paras, everybody working in our schools, to be able to commit to our work, which, again, shows up as a lagging indicator here from last year. But certainly their work is well underway and continues.
All right, and then as we conclude, and then before we get into discussion, here's some key points that I want to make sure that we're communicating, and that I'll ask that we all work to communicate just in the community about where we are. So first, again, Oshkosh North and Oshkosh West are 2 of the top 3 scoring high schools in the Fox Valley Association Conference. That is huge, and it's important that we lift that up. We also know that the work that our staff, who are extremely dedicated to the mission and the vision and the goals that we've established, they have done significant work to inspire growth within our students, and that continues to be a strength in the Oshkosh Area School District, as evidenced by the slide where we saw the rate at which we experience growth compared to the rest of the state. So we're going to continue to focus on growth while keeping a high bar and a high expectation for the goals that we have around achievement. Our incremental steps toward that achievement matter, and being able to celebrate where we are and our progress toward those goals are important. We also maintain a focus on explicit and systematic phonics and foundational literacy instruction. We understand that is important. And we're doubling down on that and making some really significant changes that I'll talk about in a moment, so that all of our students are receiving literacy instruction according to what we understand in our current research. And then also prioritizing math instruction in early grades. So we've expanded our focus from that kindergarten through second grade to strategically sustain and accelerate proficiency in math in grades kindergarten through 8. And we know that that'll be important as students prepare to go into the high school levels. So improvement efforts that we currently have in place, again, adopting a universal and comprehensive literacy curriculum for all of our elementary and middle schools, adopting the most current edition of our math curriculum for elementary and middle schools, and then consistently leveraging and aligning across our district highly engaging and rigorous instructional practices that allow us to get a sense of how students are doing in real time, and then assessing that using approaches such as proficiency-based grading, so that students and families know exactly where skills development needs will require more attention and what students are doing well. So these are some key points that I want to make sure that we are all on the same page with, and that as we talk about the work that we're doing to inspire growth toward the goals that we've set, this is the work, and we'll continue this work and commit to this work throughout the marathon of our processes. At this time, there are additional questions or conversation just around what we've shown here. We'll have that conversation now.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
We talk a lot about team, whether it be our teachers and our paras, administrative principals. I'm wondering, in our growth aspect, how we are incorporating families into our learning team. What we heard tonight with the paras is pretty upsetting.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering what our engagement level is with our families to help with this learning process, because it is a process and it is a marathon. So I hope that we're getting some involvement from them as well.
Absolutely, and we know that continuing to lean into partnerships with families and engaging families, I will say that where we are, it's important to celebrate the work that teachers and our team members are doing to engage families, and also knowing that we need to lean in more and dig deeper so that we are engaging families and including families of students who are in those target groups particularly. And I know we've heard that at previous listening sessions, just the importance of leveraging those partnerships specifically for our ESOL families, families of students who receive special education, and our Black and African American students.
Well, it's not just them, though. It's a lot of families, and it's got to be our entire district.
Absolutely. Yep.
Sorry for the downer. That was some good information. I apologize.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Dr. Herzog.
I'll defer to my colleagues over there.
Oh,
I was just going to say, so I was looking at some of these statistics, and we compare ourselves to the state, and then I thought, well, what if we're not a very good state? Like, how do we, and we're measuring ourselves against our state. So I did a quick Google, and depending on what you read and which one you prefer, Wisconsin is consistently in the top 10, which kind of surprised me, because I know it had been a top 10 school at some point, and then we kind of went down a little bit, but I'm happy to see that we are in the top 10 and that we're benchmarking against a good state, right?
Yep, and so absolutely, and so the point to that we also want to make sure we're driving home is how we're doing on a national average as well, right? And so nationally, again, we putting that into context and into perspective.
Context, yep.
Absolutely. Yep.
so Dr. Coleman, you're the first person, I guess, to look at, from an outside lens, our curriculum and instruction stuff, probably what, in 10 years? Or it's been a while.
Give or take, I
right?
guess, yeah.
And you've worked in some high-performing school districts.
Yes.
In the past. And there's always going to be things for us to work and improve on. In every single school district in every state, you know, you want to continually work to improve things. right?
Yep.
Never is everything going to be perfect. So with this data, what opportunities excite you about the future?
So,
ISD.
absolutely. What I'm most excited about, so when we talk about our curriculum adoptions in literacy and in math, but I'll speak to literacy specifically. One of the things that many school districts across the state and nationally don't get right is the approach to the literacy curriculum that focuses specifically on skill at the expense of building students' background knowledge in areas like the sciences and in social studies. I'm excited that we are exploring curricular resources that certainly prioritize skill development specifically in literacy, but we're using or looking for what's called a knowledge building curriculum, and that is we're not compromising or sacrificing the background knowledge that students need in content areas like social studies and science, but that the curricular resource that we're using includes key and important knowledge components from the sciences and in social studies. So what I believe will result from that is not only will we have students who are stronger readers and stronger mathematicians, but they'll have a clear sense of how that applies in the world that they live in through a social studies lens and a science lens. And so I'm excited about that because I love when students ask, like, why do I need to know this and when am I ever going to use this? And being able to provide learning opportunities where they don't have to be curious about why they need to know this or when it's going to apply, because the intersections between the sciences and social studies and that literacy curriculum will make that really clear for students. So that excites me. What's also promising, and I'll use this when I compare just shifts that I led in my previous district and that, again, many other districts are experiencing. Here we've gotten a head start on shifting to our science of reading work. So it's not like we're switching from hot to cold without time for our staff and our teams to develop the skills needed to implement this curriculum. The last 2.5 and 3 years that our district leaders and principals and teachers have engaged in has set us up beautifully to lean into the early literacy and science of reading teaching strategies in ways that will not require what we call time to grow your sea legs. Like we've been doing that over the last couple years. And so I also like that we'll be able to hit the ground and roll at a pace that is significantly faster than certainly most school districts. And we did an analysis of what school districts are currently using here in the Fox Valley and just where they are and compared to where we are. And so we're in a really great position to execute that adoption in ways that our teachers are prepared for.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Dr. Herzog.
Thank you. When I read your report, for the first time and the second time, I was very impressed with your candor and your courage in calling out the areas where we need to improve. We also have lots of areas to celebrate, but we also have a lot of areas of improvement. And I really am grateful for your ability to come in here into the district, and in 6 months, you have a focus on opportunities for improvement and some specific examples where we can improve systemically. I think that's been a great asset to us and will be moving forward. So I want to thank you for your ability to sift through information in the great Wisconsin tradition of sifting and winnowing
Yes,
to
indeed. I
focus
remember that.
to focus clearly on some specific things that we can do to move the district forward, and equally importantly, or maybe more so, our students, individual students forward. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think it's important that as we identify in these key communications what those systemic shifts are, it takes the guesswork out of when we say we have to shift our system, because there are certainly things that we're doing in real time to provide interventions. But we know that we can't intervene our way to the goals that we have set up, that there are systemic shifts that have to occur. And so we just appreciate the opportunity to demystify what those systemic shifts are, because often when we hear like we have to change the system, it's really tough for people to make sense of what that even means. And so we'll continue to, with very specific clarity, talk about what in the system will change, the timeline that those changes will occur on, and then what we can expect to see as a result of those changes. And so here, we're talking about our curricular resources, we're talking about very specific practices that we're using, and that is how we shift the system to get overall better results in our system, and I'm excited about that.
So just one other comment. Mr. Carnes more eloquently stated this at a meeting or two ago, and that is our need to understand the role of the classroom teacher, and I would say the paras helped us understand better the role of the paras in moving our students forward. Not every student necessarily comes to school eager or ready to learn, and we're going to be asking, it sounds like, our teachers to adopt a new curriculum, new instructional materials, and that's a lot, as Mr. Carnes pointed out, on the plates of our elementary teachers in particular. So I hope that we take that into consideration when we're trying to move this process along.
Yes.
At a pretty aggressive rate to
Yep.
try to make up for some of the learning loss that we had experienced since COVID. So I just want to make sure that we're looking out for the welfare of our teachers and our paras as we move through this process.
Absolutely. And one of the things that, so I highlighted here on the third bullet point down around facilitating that support and the change. So really taking a research-based, science-informed approach to change management and managing growth by prioritizing clarity. And again, doing this in ways that is reasonable and manageable. So we know that on 4 plates and with, teachers working at capacity, in order to achieve these improvement results, being crystal clear with how we're going to do that, the pace we're going to move at, and then being reasonable. Reasonable about the amount of time that it takes, being reasonable about the amount of planning that's needed, the amount of professional learning that's needed. And so that is certainly something that we're being aware of. And then, as Principal Pascarella stated earlier, myself and our directors, we are in schools, we are in classrooms, we're taking a temperature check regularly so that we aren't making decisions from our offices that don't reflect and consider the realities that teachers and students and our support staff are experiencing in the classrooms on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you.
That's good. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you very much. That was very informative and very positive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, consent resolution agenda. For the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background material on each item or as discussed in previous meeting. Be acted upon with one vote without discussion. If a board member wants to discuss, it can be pulled. We did that already.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Carnes and Carlin?
Yes.
Carlin?
Aye.
DeWitt? Aye. Herzog?
Aye.
Carnes?
Aye.
Solaji? Wright?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. And then we have our final individually considered resolution, number 9, approval of Wisconsin Association of School Boards WASB resolutions.
So move.
Second. Herzog? DeWitt?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Discussion? Dr. Herzog.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that we do this every year in December. Every school district, every public school district in the state either does this in December or January, but in advance of the State Education Convention, which this year will be January 17th through 19th in Milwaukee. These resolutions that you have before you were put forth by member school districts from throughout the state. They've been vetted to the extent that there were 2 representatives from each of the 15 regions who looked at these and answered 2 questions. Are these relevant and timely? And is this something that should be voted on by all 421 school districts? They did not debate the merits of these but they just determined which ones would go forward. There were at least 2 that did not go forward. One had to do with universal free lunch and breakfast across the state, and that one was defeated on the floor of the Assembly last year, the delegate assembly, and so the group decided it wasn't timely and it wasn't different enough from last year's resolution to move forward. The first couple of these deal with student teachers. The first, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I just want to hit a couple of highlights. So Resolution 2401 talks about giving student teachers a break, either waive fees or give them a full license and allow them to earn a stipend or to substitute teach while they're student teaching. Resolution 2402 provides stipends for cooperating teachers. So people like Mrs. Dorschner Mackey at Oshkosh West, who has a student teacher this semester, it would allow Mrs. Dorschner Mackey to receive a stipend for working with that student teacher. Right now, most of them get a letter of thanks, and that's about it. There are a number of items on here that represent an updating in policy. Resolution 2407, though, refers to the State Office of School Safety. There was an event held at Oshkosh West this summer where Mrs. Cole gave testimony along with our State Attorney General and Dr. Davis on the importance of that Office of School Safety, especially with the 24-hour hotline for confidentially reported potential threats to schools. I'm not going to go through the rest of these, but the main reason we're voting on these is to be able to discuss these tonight if you have any questions or concerns, and to direct our delegate, Mrs. Carlin, as to how we would like her to vote. So we can accept them as a package, and then she'll know how to vote. However, on the delegate assembly floor, there are often people who offer amendments, and we have no idea what those will be, and so we give her the authority to vote on our behalf as she sees fit at the moment. Perfect. Okay.
I'm looking forward to finishing the delegate assembly this year.
So am I.
Any other discussion? Okay. Mrs. Carlin, you have our
Thank you.
our support. Call the roll, please.
DeWitt. Aye. Herzog.
Aye.
Kearns.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. Any request for future agenda items that are not already scheduled? Okay. Any announcements?
I'll say something.
Yes?
Dr. Davis, I listened to your podcast already today. I was driving to work and back, so kudos. Thought it was well done, and look forward to the next ones.
Thank you. Thanks, appreciate that.
Everyone go to Jimmy John's tomorrow.
Jimmy John's tomorrow.
Oh, Oshkosh West and Oshkosh North wrestling tomorrow night. Anybody interested in attending?
Excellent.
Okay. All right, thank you. Next, we will be adjourning to executive session. There's 2 items that we're going to be considering. We're going to be
I move to waive the reading of the executive session.
Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
All right. Herzog.
Aye.
Kearns.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
DeWitt. Aye. Motion carries.
We are adjourned to executive session. Thank you, everyone.
Motion to adjourn.